Today's topic of conversation is the Austrian Grand Prix preview, round 9 of the 2019 season. Can the streak be broken? We know so far in 2019 Mercedes have been bossing it. They've won every single race, and Lewis Hamilton has a 100% finishing on the podium record. However, last year, arguably, this was the thorn in Mercedes' side. A double DNF. The time before that they did a double DNF was when Rosberg and Hamilton collided back in 2016. So, reliability for Mercedes, for that to go wrong on both cars last year was a major shock. We'll talk about last year in a moment. However, so far this year, there's been no issues whatsoever. And Hamilton, fresh off a commanding victory, another Mercedes 1-2 last time out in France. It seems unlikely they're going to miss out on the top step this weekend. But we don't know. You never know in Formula One. I mean, again, look at last year. Max Verstappen, the eventual winner. Where did that come from? The Red Bull did not have pace here at the Red Bull Ring last year. They went home with a victory. Ferrari were 2-3. Kimi Räikkönen was P2. Fourth and fifth, the two Haas cars last year. Romain Grosjean, fourth place for him. Brilliant job last year. It was his first points, though, of the season at that point. So a mega turnaround from him. Coming into this weekend, though, this is a circuit which should favour the Mercedes. We're going to talk about practice in a moment, as we always do in these previews. And I'll tell you what, I never thought I'd say this, but I don't even think this is controversial at this point. FP2, practice 2 this afternoon, was more interesting than the entire French Grand Prix. 2 red flag stops, debris all over the place at this circuit. Those yellow rumble strips, which you can see on your screen now, plastered all over the circuit. And Austria, a track not synonymously known for overtakes, over the last few years has become a track where drama is absolutely everywhere, even in qualifying. Think back a few years ago now, back to 2014, a Williams front row, Massa pole position, Valtteri Bottas P2, and on that day, Valtteri Bottas took his first ever podium in Formula One. Last year, he was on pole position. The year before, he got his second victory in Formula One. A track Bottas is very, very good at. Seems to have the edge over Hamilton at this circuit, but time will tell in 2019. So on your screen now should be the top 10 from FP1 and FP2. Now, as you can see, if you are eagle-eyed, the times were actually quicker in the morning practice. And the reason for that is in the second practice in the afternoon, usually they do, a few quick runs early on, do a race simulation, and then at the end do a few more quick laps. Well, because there were so many red flags in second practice, those laps, to be honest with you, aren't very representative whatsoever. These laps were mostly done before any of the red flags came out. So although it's Leclerc first, Bottas P2 and Gasly P3, take that all with a pinch of salt. And FP1, as we also know, is not the best in terms of reliability, in terms of the pace of the cars. However, we'll have a quick look with Hamilton the quickest overall in first practice. Vettel P2, Bottas P3 and Leclerc P4. Looks like, Mercedes still do have the edge, but it could be closer than last time out in France. Red Bull also only just behind Mercedes, with Verstappen edging out Gasly again in P5 and P6. And it looks like in the midfield it's going to be that similar kind of best of the rest fight we've had all season long, with McLaren and Renault and potentially Haas being in the mix. Magnussen P9 in FP1, Grosjean P6 in FP2, but again, that FP2 session is a waste of time, to be honest with you. But lots of talking points coming out of practice this weekend, lots of stories going into the Austrian Grand Prix. So we're going to start with, let's start with first practice, because I mentioned a minute ago the rumble strips, and on quite a few of the exits of the corners at this circuit, there are these yellow rumble strips, these sausage curbs. And at some circuits, they're a little bit of nothing, really. Drivers drive over them, and that's about it. There's no penalties. I mean, look at last time out in France. It's just a bit of a free-for-all with track limits there. In Austria, not quite so much the case. You look down into turn 4, a giant gravel runoff area, similar to turn 5 and 6. We saw the Red Bull of Gasly go through turn 4, that giant gravel trap. We saw Sainz go through the gravel trap through turns 5 and 6. So we also saw Bottas, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But they seem to be working really well. There's a bit of a debate more on the sausage curbs. I personally, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, I don't have anything wrong with it. The issue people have is that it's damaging the cars, and although, track limits should be enforced, people are saying it's not fair that the cars are being damaged. And I do have to admit, there is quite a bit of damage these curbs are causing. Most notably, Lance Stroll, I believe 3 times went over those curbs and had damage to the front wing. Charles Leclerc, Nico Hülkenberg caused a red flag at the end of the first session with plenty of damage. Rejoined on the last corner, caused even more damage. So for me, I'm cool with it. I think that's going to add, as we've seen in the last couple of years, a bit of spice, especially to qualifying and even into the race. That almost knowing that one tiny little kink of oversteer could really screw you, to be honest, for the entire race if you get damaged. So that's going to be a real nice element, in my opinion. But some people think that's a little too extreme, and just white lines are fine. So we'll have to see over the course of the weekend. But of course, you've got to remember, those sausage curves weren't there originally. They didn't have anything. It was argued that the drivers were pushing, going far, far beyond the lines, the white lines. So that's why they're put in the first place. But I want to know your thoughts on the comments below. But FP2, more stories galore in actual fact. Early on, we had the Gasly incident. Nothing too major, to be honest with you. On at turn 4, managed to not get beached in the gravel, return to the circuit, but not too far later, Max Verstappen losing the rear end on the final corner, slides through the gravel, so much momentum, the rear end of the car into the wall. His practice is over. His practice is over, and what some people say is his home Grand Prix. I mean, the Orange Army, this is their Grand Prix, to be fair, and Verstappen's wearing that signature yellow helmet he now wears at Austria. He'll be disappointed with himself, and he's come out straight away and said, you know what, I'll hold my hands up, and that was my fault. But it's good to see that even the best drivers are making mistakes. We then get racing again. Instantly, another red flag, this time Bottas in the Mercedes, going through turn 4, 5, 6, going through turn 6, snap of oversteer, tries to correct it, but in one of the strangest places on the circuit, so much momentum goes through the gravel trap into the wall. I've never seen a crash there before. I think Leclerc got very close last year in the race, but didn't quite end up in the wall. Sainz also had a snap of oversteer later on in the session, but again, didn't end up in the wall. So Verstappen and Bottas, very, very limited running in second practice, and especially for Bottas, who you'd expect to be at the front fighting, that's going to hurt him tomorrow. He's going to have to do a lot of catching up tomorrow morning, and I think that'll be on his mind overnight, and that'll be on his mind going into qualifying. And I think Hamilton, who usually is super cool in these kind of conditions, especially mentally, I think that'll definitely help him into qualifying. But the drama didn't stop there. We get racing again, and Vettel now, exactly where Verstappen did it, loses the rear end a little bit earlier on than Verstappen. Verstappen was almost halfway through the final corner. Vettel was as soon as he turned in. I don't know if he had a wheel on the white lines on the left-hand side, on the outside of the circuit. I'm not really too sure, but it was a very, very similar incident. But because Vettel did it just that little bit earlier into the corner, was able to just keep it out of the barriers. But this circuit is proven to be difficult. High temperatures there this weekend. Also, strong winds. I think it's going to make a really interesting Grand Prix. Potentially, we could see a two-stopper. But again this year, even when a two-stopper's been on the cards, most of the teams have found a way around it and have gone with the one-stopper. So I think a lot of people over the next few weeks, I mean, we've got back-to-back races, it feels like at the moment. But I think a lot of people over the next few weeks will be discussing changes in Formula One, especially over the summer. because after the French Grand Prix and arguably the Canadian Grand Prix, things do need to be changed, don't they? But that's food for thought for another day. Anyway, this weekend looking like it's going to shape up to be quite good, especially in the midfield. High temperatures could hurt teams like Haas and Alfa Romeo, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Predictions, I've actually gone with the same as last time. I've gone with a Bottas win, Hamilton P2 and Leclerc P3. Bottas, although he's had that incident in FP2, seems to have the edge over Hamilton at this circuit, and I think we'll just have the edge when it comes to race day. P3, it's a difficult one, but Vettel seems to be on a little bit of a downward slope with form at the moment. Leclerc, really strong race in France last time. That car was comfortably the second best and almost pipped Bottas to P2 at the end. I know there were different things at play there, but he seems to be on an upward trajectory. Vettel maybe a little bit down. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Can Gasly or Verstappen get in the mix? Would be great for them at their home Grand Prix, and especially Gasly, who increasingly is under pressure. Final bit of news from me. Setup should be, the setup IRL and on the channel should be back to normal this time next week. However, what that does mean, as a almost repercussion, is tomorrow's qualifying report will be out much later than expected. So that'll be out tomorrow evening time rather than tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully you enjoy qualifying, hopefully you enjoy the race, and I'll see you in the next one.